Hello, good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde here in Lagos.
Why you keep saying here in Lagos, here in Lagos?
No, I know that
Where else would it be?
Markwell always torments us with in Abuja. So let's just come on. It doesn't hurt, does it?
Well, yeah, ever since that report came through, the EndSARS report that was leaked, several references, and of course there will be a lot of reactions up until 2 weeks, remember. So we're counting down to when the white paper will be released. So lots of people are looking forward to that. Incidentally, the president has also spoken about what he intends to do. He says, well, he has to wait for the Lagos panel report before he could make any comment, because lots of people were wondering, what is the president going to say about this?
I remember it was something we asked Mr. Falana yesterday, and he said, look, the right thing for the president to do is to wait for those reports to come through. And, of course, that's a given. But we'd have also listened to the minority caucus in the House of Representatives also speaking on the same matter and saying, look, you know what, this is mindless, all the denials and all of those things, what have they come to now? That's that. And then, of course, you know what so many people are saying about the same thing. And, of course, even a member of the panel is also saying that some suspected government officials are, picking at members of the panel, saying, look, maybe it didn't expect it to go that way. It's something we're still going to be getting into it later on. But, for me, all of this should tie into a global vision for the country. Where are we going? What do we want to be recognized with? Don't forget that the president, while marketing the country, was saying, look, we are ready for you. Come into the country. We will do everything we can to ensure that you have a suitable business environment to work with and all of that. So many people have also spoken about the fact that the fulcrum of getting anything done in any country is justice. So if people are not sure that they will get justice at any given point in time for whatever it is that happens, whether it's business or whatever it is.
So about 11 days now until, to the release of the white paper, as said. So many keeping tabs on that to see what actually happens.
And that's for Lagos. Don't forget that other Lagos states are still...
Okay, so we'll be back in a moment and take you through some of the dailies. Welcome back. Let's take you through some of the dailies, and we'll start with Vanguard newspaper today. EndSARS. FG waiting for panel reports from states. Buhari. Whoa, from states now. Oh, panel reports from states. Oh, dear.
We mentioned it.
Oh,
Don't forget that even at the time that the announcement, I think it was the vice president that said, look, let all states, go ahead and, set up their panels according to the law and all those things. And it's after that the federal government will be able to do something. It's curious, though, that it seems that everyone is waiting only for the Lagos report.
Well, it was a huge subject of controversy.
Yeah.
Lives were involved, and there were said to be many, as you've seen, some of those references now to that certain reports. But look at the riders, there are so many of them. Controversy as panel member raises alarm over unfair persecution. We're being unfairly persecuted. Panel report fraught with errors. Lagos government cancel. Panel report, one of the best ever produced. Falana asks FG to sanction Malami. Others who try to cover up Lekki shootings. So, well, that much they must have gleaned from yesterday while he was speaking about some of those matters. So, if you saw the full interview, perhaps you could. But if you didn't, you still got a chance to do that. It's online, a YouTube channel. You can see that, all of it, as a matter of fact. So that is a big one. And the concerns are there about how federal government handles education and different agencies or groups or associations who want one thing or the other. And now, look at this one just above this lead story. Strike. FG promises to address ASU's demands in 7 days. Wow. This is like a record.
This is 2001.
And now it's come down to 7 days.
We're waiting.
This is record speed, I tell you.
No.
Welcome record speed, I might add.
Proposed. Still a proposition.
Whoa, come on.
Come on, it's not the 7th day yet, is it?
No, it's not. FG promises. Promises.
Don't forget that there was an MOA signed,
Okay, well,
MOU signed, MOA signed.
Look, I get it. People internalize things the way they want. That's fine. That is fine.
Okay.
But I just
hopeful, Abby.
Promises here. That's
okay.
what we see here. They promise to address it. Oh, well, look, better still, people should just read the story, and maybe we shouldn't go with the headlines alone. You know, that's always an advisory that we like to give here time and again. Yoruba Nation, FG wants to blackmail me. Akintoye. Okay. I think politicians might be a little disappointed because above that lead story, Buhari believes in direct primaries. Bajabiamila. Although rejoice here, it doesn't mean that the bill will be passed or signed into law. I hate to bust a bubble. I'm just thinking aloud, really, so I could be wrong, and I hope to be. I pray to be wrong. We'll just surprise everybody, or not everybody, some, and just sign it. Don't forget to check out the back page, football lovers. Nigeria wasting time with Raw Kalu. I once rejected him as Eyimba coach. Oh dear. That's Vanguard today.
He still didn't read Mr. and Mrs. Anyway, the Daily Times newspaper this morning talking about the same issue. Buhari breaks silence on hashtag EndSARS panels reports. Says state governments will have to act on reports of their panels before FG will act on the recommendations.
My what white paper?
Well, you have to read the story to find out how. U.S. expects responses that address grievances of victims, says Blinken. Government agencies attacking Lagos panel members at Digboruwa raises alarm. Find all of that on the front page, continues on page 2. About the nameplate, that same story. Strike. FG promises to address ASU's basic demands within 7 days. See? Not demands. Basic demands. It's coming down, right?
Why are you skipping the word promises there?
Okay. Promises to address ASU's basic demand. I think it also depends on who's making the promise on behalf of the
look. FG is FG. FG promises. Now you say basic demands. Well, there's a promise, and there's a 7-day period.
Okay.
And that's not bad.
We're hopeful
hoping that they put their money where their mouth is.
Green stream, a green strip under the page there. No plan to eject female officers residing in barracks with spouses. Again, no plan to eject female officers residing in barracks with spouses. That's ascribed to the IGP. Stories on page 4. Sounds like something cheering for the female folk. Marco, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Well, you wanted to hear the from Abuja part. Yes, I'm Malwell Yusuf from Abuja. And it's very reassuring to hear that from the IGP, saying that female folks, female officers who are living in the barracks with their spouses will not be ejected. Because one would imagine that the Nigerian police will be fair to both its male and female officers, and that, you know, they get equal treatment. If men or male officers are allowed to live in the barracks with their spouses, then the same should go for women without question. So this, and wherever it has come from, had better return to the rumor mill. This is very reassuring to hear from the IGP, and I hope that all his officers and those who command the barracks also get the memo. Let's take a look at what Daily Trust has on the front page for you. Train passengers stranded. NRC loses millions as unions strike. That's the lead story on the front page of Daily Trust. Traveling to Kaduna from Abuja by road, risky. Tough time for intra-city commuters in Lagos. We're engaging unions, that's according to the management. You have to ask, when did we just begin to enjoy the little benefits of this real, that workers are going on strike? Well, we hope that whatever their grievances are, you know, it's addressed ASAP. Look at this. I'm awaiting EndSARS reports from states. Buhari tells U.S. Again, Kwankwaso Wali feud forces PDP to postpone Northwest Congress. And look at this. Nigeria-U.S. signed $2.17 billion deal on education, health, others. That's also there. U.S. Secretary of State is in town, Anthony Blinken. And, of course, we'll be bringing you all of the happenings on this trip and all that happens while he's here. But some of it you've already said, and you're currently saying Nigeria-U.S. signed $2.17 billion deal on education, health, others. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Well, let's quickly take a look at the Guardian newspaper then. EndSARS report, why we are yet to act, Buhari tells Blinken. And then you see Blinken, we insist on accountability, addressing victims' grievances. Nigerians must be redesignated on religious violators list. U.S. agency kicks. FG Oyebode Oseni Huriwa react to removal from religious freedom blacklist. So, there you go. Got lots of reactions about that one here today. But that's the Guardian today.
Flip to Daily Independent. How cheering this is. Let's see. Nigeria's economic recovery slows as GDP drops by 0.98%. What does that mean? Well, dig into the story on the front page, continues on the inside pages. And under the picture, you see there, we're waiting on states for EndSARS reports, Buhari tells Blinken, among several other stories right there, which include ASU shelves strike as Gbajabiamila intervenes. Find the story on page 29. What does that mean, really? It's on the inside pages. Marco.
Well, let's take a look at Leadership Friday for you. After 3 positive growths, Nigeria's GDP slows to 4.03%. Federal government blames impact of COVID-19, dismisses looming food crisis. Experts proffer solutions, say stronger growth required. That's also, it's on page 4, read for you. After 3 positive growths, Nigeria's GDP slows to 4.03%. And look at this, no going back on direct primaries. That's attributed to the speaker, Gbajabiamila. It's a page 7 read. He seems to be championing this, very strongly. Yesterday, he was there to meet the president while the president was signing a few bills into law. The question now will be whether there was anything discussed around this direct primaries or no direct primaries. But he says no going back. It's a page 7 read. You have a few other stories on the corner here. Federal government to pay ASU 12.17 billion naira earned allowances. We understand that the House was also able to successfully wade into the matter. We sincerely hope that ASU will not go on that strike. Let's leave it there for Leadership Friday.
All Nigerian Tribune next. States get FG's 656 billion naira support. So you wonder, okay, what's happening to that swimming fee that they had, which is all over the papers at the time, wherein the matter was supposed to be in court. Is it still in court? I mean, looking at this, do you expect that they will settle out of court to have a political solution? They like to say that. So, who knows?
Well, what's the support for would be interesting to find out.
Okay, each state to receive 18.225 billion naira in 6 tranches. Latest loan to be repaid with a 30-year tenure. 2-year moratorium at interest rate of 9%. Whoa. This is because at the moment, the interest rate in banks is in double digits. Is it 2022 thereabout? Do you know? Oh, okay. I need to double check on that one. But you know that the country is crying to see how do we get interest rates to a single digit, a competitive single digit, because you have several other goods that come into this country that those manufacturers get loans at 3%. How do you expect them to compete if you're getting, even if you were 15 or 17 or 18% interest rates here, how will they ever compete?
I think these are some of the things that, you know, where it is, whether we like it or not, it is part of the reason that government's revenue is dwindling. Because if, just as you said, if the businesses are finding it difficult to get resources to fund their businesses and do business the way they ought to, micro, small, and medium enterprises are not able to do things as and when they ought to because of dwindling resources. They have to literally depend on themselves and their friends and family to raise money to do business. Where is government going to get taxes and all of that from? Look, it is important for us, it is necessary to understand exactly what is happening with this particular fund. That issue that came on between the federal government and the states, such that they all came together and spoke with one voice on that matter. What has happened to that one? It will be interesting to find out how that one is now.
Yeah, and you know, this perhaps will fuel a lot more conversation as to, so if this can be given to the states, not saying it's a bad thing though, but if it can be given to the states at interest rates of 9%, why will the banks not follow suit on this kind of scenario? Because isn't it the same environment? Isn't it the same environment?
Exactly. So it's curious. It definitely is curious.
Curious, as they say, isn't it? But I guess, who knows, in the days ahead. Set up independent inquiry on Justice Odede's home invasion, Falana tells Buhari. Yeah, that's also there. But don't forget, don't take your eye off this one. Railway workers begin strike, cripple operations nationwide. There were articles that spoke about them earning less than 30,000 naira per month. Well, who knows? Yeah, I know you've already seen that one at the bottom strip. Buhari to Blinken on the report saying FGs are waiting EndSARS panel reports from states. And that might take a while. Who knows how long it will be.
Especially being states, not just one state.
So does it mean that every state will set up a panel, about 28 of them or so, will have to submit it? What if one state doesn't submit up until 1 year?
Well, I guess we'll probably have to do what they call mean median mode.
I don't know how that's going to work.
I guess we'll wait and see. Just as we say, you say all the time, government has its work cut out. It's just the way it is. Nigerian News Direct is also interested in the economy this morning. Energy and economic growth. U.S. Nigeria seal $2.17 billion agreements. That's the lead of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Find the details on the inside pages. Nigeria remains our most important partner in Africa.
Interesting.
Subscribe to the U.S.
Even though China is making massive inroads, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa.
Was it 2 years ago?
Some of those loans, facilities, infrastructure that is being done now, and look at Chinese loan interest and influence. It tells you a lot.
Was it the 2 years ago?
Speaks volumes.
2 years ago or thereabout, when most countries in Europe, Britain, France, Germany, they were all coming into, including the same China and the US, coming into Africa, meeting with different, countries in Africa to see ways of doing something. And they just told me one thing: Africa is the new bride. Question is, how is Africa going to take advantage of that and not become enslaved? And
besides,
not become enslaved.
Did anybody ever get further explanation about that? What was that deal, that agreement you had with China about the renminbi, the currency, the yuan? So
the currency swap.
What is it about? Businesses don't even talk about it. You ask them and say, well, we don't know.
I think I had a privilege of asking some economists who ought to know. So he's not even sure that the thing has taken off. If it has taken off, maybe not as prominently. So again, that leads a lot of issues to be addressed by all the people who have their work cut out for them. Markwe?
Well, let's quickly take you through the New Telegraph, and they have this: humanitarian crisis. U.S.'s support for Northeast hits $1.45 billion. That's according to the consulate. Says military intervention not enough to solve security challenges. It's a page 3 read there for you. You have a number of other stories. Strike. Federal government, ASU, agree as Gbajabiamila brokers truce. That's also on the front page. EndSARS reports, we're waiting for states to take action. Buhari tells Blinken. That is also one of the stories. Says no religious discrimination in Nigeria. Lagos Council picks holes in judicial panel's report. And Nigeria's GDP grows by 4.03% in the third quarter of 2021. Volume of economic activities peaks at 18.5 trillion naira. You know, some people will say that, you know, growth is growth. However, when we think of the fact that this time last year, we were still very much in the era, we're still very much in the pandemic, but last year we're still in a lockdown. Shops were just gradually beginning to open, close to November. And before we knew what's happening, there was a second wave. Can we really say that, you know, when we're comparing growth, rate of growth as against the year of a pandemic, 2020, you know, should we really cheer 4.03% in growth? Or should we compare against 2019, where we were in some form of normalcy, and look at how we're doing compared with that? Some people might say that might be a better standard of measurement, but who knows? You might want to read page 5 to give you all of the details. And look at this. It's about mental health. Reps decry high rate of suicide in Nigeria. What's going to be done about it? Je ne sais pas. I don't know. But let us see. Maybe page 8 might give us clues. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
Well, then Independent next then. Nigeria's economic... Oh, okay. That's the one that you took. But did you see that part? I'm just looking at that part where it says, bandits get round telecom shutdown, use walkie-talkies, ascribed to Katsina State government. So really we have to pay attention to that as well. So there you go. That ends it. We'll look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in a moment. And guess what? Yes, we're focusing on EndSARS. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, we are keeping our focus on the EndSARS panel. Again, looking forward to that 2-week period wherein, who knows, the white paper might be out, so lots of talk about that as well. But this morning, we've got 2 gentlemen joining us to shed light on some of the goings-on about the report. We've got Mr. Kaide Eniton, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria and is the counsel, one of the counsels to Lagos State government on the EndSARS. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and we will also get to see Dr. Adedosumu, MON, who is a former DG of the MASA and a public policy analyst. Good morning as well, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Okay, you get to see Dr. Adedosumu soon. He's here with us, actually. Mr. Niton, so much, I know you know, is being said and will be said about the EndSARS panel.
Definitely.
And what the state government to do, how they will approach it, how would the white paper go. But concerning some of the media comments that have been made about what's being circulated, perhaps we should even start by asking you, what is your impression about that document that is being circulated at the moment?
Well, that document could only have come from someone who was on the panel.
You could say for sure.
The only people who had it were members of the panel, and that was a soft copy. Who could have had a soft copy? As of the date the hard copies were being given to the government, it could only be members of the panel. So one of them deliberately leaked it for whatever purpose.
Why do you think it's deliberate?
Well, why would you put something that is not meant to be in the public if you have no intention of doing so? And I'm aware that it was leaked to a specific individual who then posted it in a group. And when it got in that group, it then went viral.
So the individual, the member of the panel didn't directly leak it to the public.
He must have. Because if the minute he leaves his hand, it's in the public domain. If something is supposed to be with me and I give it to you, then I've leaked it. And that would be deliberate. That could not have been inadvertence.
What if it didn't come from any member of the panel directly? What if it came from anyone else who was working with them?
I would not want to conjecture along that line, because whoever was working with them, would he have what a member then came out to say, yes, that is our report, but that seemed to have some errors.
It seems from all you're saying that you're literally putting question marks on the integrity of members of the panel.
I do not doubt their individual integrity. However, the fact remains that that document, that soft copy that is in the public domain, could only have come from one of them. Who exactly that was, the person's conscience tells him that he did it.
Do you think it's something that the government should investigate?
I don't think the government should bother itself about that. But what has that done? The leaking, what has it done? It's now given everyone who would want to speak to it, to read it and speak to it. Originally, I personally have not bothered to speak publicly outside of, in the well of the panel, about what was going on there. And it's not because one didn't have anything to say, but the appropriate thing to do is wait for the report, submit it to government, wait for the white paper, and then we all discuss the white paper.
But it appears you have an idea of who the person is directly, specifically.
I cannot say specifically this individual, but if you were to look at the avenue, then one could conjecture, but I wouldn't even want to go into that.
Yeah, but you know, I asked because, I mean, when you say he leaked it, there are male and female members, but you said he. So it comes across as though you know who.
Maybe that's a function of my gender.
I'm not sure.
Maybe that's a function of my gender.
Are you by then
Yes.
confirming that this leaked report is the authentic one?
I cannot speak to the authenticity, but what I can say is that a member of the panel has publicly acknowledged that document as being the report, though this has some errors, as he called it.
That's a member. But you were counsel
Yes.
to Lagos. So you know which one is the report.
No, I do not know.
You've not seen
What I know, which is what I saw on TV, is that on Monday, 2 hard copies were handed over to the governor. I saw that on TV. We were not invited.
You've not seen any of those hard copies?
No. I haven't.
But you've seen the soft copy?
Of course. Which I have taken the pains to read the 309 pages. I've taken the pains to sift through the evidence that is contained in that report, and I've taken the pains to compare it with the findings. And when that is done, you would find out that there are too many inconsistencies between evidence and finding. Unfortunately, not many people who have spoken as to the content or the findings have taken the pains to read those 309 pages.
You know, should they take the pains to read it or wait for the state government to release the document, the report itself, so that people know we're speaking to the proper document?
The government is not expected to release the report.
Why?
Panels of inquiry, according to the law, Tribunal of Inquiry's law of Lagos State, the panel would sit, take evidence, whatever their report is, they are meant to submit to government. Government will look through that report, and the government will now come up with a white paper stating, we have seen this, we accept this, we do not accept this, we do not accept, and they will put their reasons. That is what the white paper is for. It is the white paper that we are all supposed to be discussing,
so
not the report.
What law will be broken if the state government releases the report before the white paper?
That will go contrary to the Tribunal of Inquiry law.
But there have been several occasions we know in this country. I'm very sure you're well aware of several such panels of inquiry whose report never saw the light of day until they were investigated by journalists, whose white papers never saw the light of day, whose recommendations were never taken, up at all, and which left many, many people with the sense that justice has been denied.
That is correct. But then, that is not the situation here. When it was submitted to the governor, he did say that he was setting, and he immediately set that panel up. Go and look at it, and then let us see what we are going to put out. And he gave a date of 2 weeks.
Which is 11 days from now.
Exactly. But on the same 15th, someone obviously could not wait, but went ahead and leaked that report, because by evening of the 15th, it was all over the place. I read it that night when I saw it on one of those social media fora that we all belong to, at least some of us belong to.
So what does the state government think about it?
I've not spoken with the governor.
Do you think that they will be upset with that, with this scenario?
I'm not in a position to say. But what I can say to you is that having read that report, I can show you clearly discrepancies. For instance, at page 287, the panels found medical evidence from Dr. Lawson and Dr. Aromalate of Reddington Hospital and Granville Trauma Center respectively reported at least one death at both facilities. That is not true. Pages 56 to 68 contain the evidence of Dr. Lawson of Reddington. Dr. Lawson never said anybody died in their facility. Granville, which is operated by Dr. Aromalate, his evidence is contained at page 109 to 115. He never said anything about anyone having died. He brought a list of everyone that presented at his facility over the course of about 2 or 3 days. Now, forensics. The panel at page 287 said Sentinel Forensics Limited, engaged by panel, confirmed that multiple muzzle flashes consistent with discharge of ammunition were observed. Forensics experts also noted that at the commencement of engagement, for the most part, the muzzle flashes appeared to be directed upwards, and at other times, direction of the protesters. Experts further noted that there were instances where at least 2 persons sustained injury and all of that. But what was the evidence? Page 8 of the forensic report tendered by Sentinel says clearly there were no visible signs of bullet fragmentation or impact patterns from high-velocity projectiles. Observed fragmentation was more consistent with impact from lower-velocity projectiles. This gentleman was taken up on what he meant. He went through the entire toll gate area, went through the entire structures at the toll gate. He said he could not find anything struck by a high-velocity projectile, which is a bullet consistent with military-grade ammunition. Now, page 15, where he was talking about muzzle flashes. He says the analysts observed sparks believed to be muzzle flashes and an indication of shots fired. More muzzle flashes are observed, all appearing to be directed upwards. Referring to page 17 of the report, the type of ammunition, live or blank discharge, could not be determined from the footage. Now, this gentleman watched the LCCC footage. The experts engaged by Lagos State watched the same LCC footage, particularly as shown on CNN. What did the panel do? The panel made a buffet of the evidence, picked the one that it liked, condemned the other one as saying, oh, the person did not speak with the participants, did not speak with victims, did not speak with protesters, did not speak with any other person. However, this expert had the medical records of all the victims, or alleged victims. He had their records which were tendered by Dr. Lawson, tendered by Dr. Aromalate. Using the medical records, subjected it to examination, medical forensics, they determined that of all the victims, some were indeed shot by high-velocity projectiles after 9 p.m. But every other person was shot by low-velocity guns, meaning guns that shoot cartridges and that discharges pellets.
So what does that entail?
That means they were not shot by law enforcement agents.
So your point is that you're trying to say that contrary to what the report says, that the army deployed and the army, bullets from the army shot people, you're saying that that's not the case?
While the army at the toll gate, no one is in doubt. Did the army fire shots? No one is in doubt. But what shots were fired? General Taiwo came and he said, yes, they had live rounds, they had blank rounds, but that the blanks were deployed. And the two experts showed consistency in the fact that they could see from the video that after each round was discharged, they had to reload. And that was consistent with blank rounds. Now, let me go on. The testimony of the pathologist. The pathologist was summoned to bring autopsy reports of anyone who was alleged to have died in the Lekki environment. He brought 3. The first one was of a blunt force trauma to the head on the 20th. The second one...
At what time?
In the night, on Admiralty Way. That's where the corpse was picked, on Admiralty Way, in the night.
So what does that mean? Did they say the time that the person was shot?
I think that would be probably in Dr. Lawson's. But the individual,
So
hold on.
That could be 6 p.m. then?
No, it was not 6 p.m.
You say you're not sure?
Yes, but nothing says 6 p.m.
How do you say for sure it's not 6 p.m.?
Nothing says 6 p.m. So let us not go to what is not on the records.
But you're going to the same evidence, some part of it.
I am speaking to what is on the records. He brought that autopsy report saying blunt force trauma to the head.
Yes, but if they
hold
didn't
on,
tell
hold on.
Just a minute.
Okay.
You say if they didn't tell us what time, because you spoke about timing for some of those matters, laying the grounds to disprove some of those evidence that was there. So if we can't be sure for now...
Okay, hold on. I think I've seen the time.
Yeah.
I've seen the time.
What time was it?
1:15 a.m.
Okay. That's when the person was shot.
Was not shot. Blunt force trauma to the head. A blunt force trauma is a cudgel.
Oh, that's when the person was hit with a blunt force.
He was brought into the facility at 1:15 a.m. The person then, that's blunt force trauma. That was apparently the person the governor referred to in his first statement.
I understand
Now,
that.
the second person,
Just
hold on, let me just...
You will get to the second one. I just want to understand you as well.
Okay, please.
Now, if you say that's when the person was brought in, but we don't have an idea of when the person sustained the injury, do we? Did the report indicate that? That's the part you say you're not sure.
The report says place of death was said to be at Lekki. This was an adult reportedly taken to Reddington Hospital in Lekki in an unconscious state on account of an open skull fracture on the 21st October at 1:15 a.m. Based on what we saw, we concluded that the death was as a result of a severe skull and brain injury, cranial-cerebral injury, which we felt was due to blunt force trauma. That is the pathology speaking. The second person was said to have been found under the Lekki-Ikoyi Bridge. The third person, and that also, the second person also had trauma to the body, blunt force.
So is your point that since they were not found at that particular spot, they could not have been part of those who were protesting and were been sustained those injuries at that spot? Is that the point you're making?
That is what the medical evidence says to us. Remember.
So it's not possible to be wounded somewhere and move elsewhere? I'm just asking.
Wounded. If you are wounded, your wound and injury should be consistent to what the allegations are. Okay. If you said the military or the police came and shot people, I expect that when you see the corpses, they will have bullet injuries.
Let's quickly
bring in... The only person, hold on, so that we are clear as to what the pathologist said. Yeah. The third person, who was said to have been found at Lekki, that was at the toll gate on the 21st, in the evening at about 9:45 p.m.
So it didn't happen on the 20th, that's your
That did not happen on the 20th.
Dr. Ade Dosumo is also here, an MON.
He's been listening in for a while.
Oh, yes, he's been here. So, well, you've been quietly listening to everything that's been said. I'm pretty sure you have some responses already, so please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, and it's good to be here. I'm surprised that the senior advocate is looking at is not looking at the fundamentals that the report has brought out. And that is what I think we should concern ourselves with, not trying to fault the content of the report or the trying to look at the consistency of whatever. I think all those ones should have been done at the panel level, which I believe that is being done. And I feel that the findings are quite mind-boggling, and to a very large extent, I want to say that I personally commend the members of that panel, led by Honorable Justice Doris Okwobi or whatever, and other eminent personalities that participated in that assignment. And for their courage, for being able to speak the truth to power and coming up with their findings.
So, Dr. Dosumo, that means that you're taking that report hook, line, and sinker? The one that is in circulation?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But how do you then, relate with, because he's a counsel, he was a counsel to Lagos on that particular scenario, and he says, well, some of what we've seen there are not accurate. In fact, one member of the panel, as he also spoke, said that, well, there were some inconsistencies in that panel. How do you reconcile all of that?
Yeah, well, that does not, well, whatever inconsistency would not, I don't think that actually affected the findings of the report, or that I feel that the major findings of the report are the things we should be talking about, not the inconsistencies and all that.
So what would the major findings for you be?
Well, the major findings for me are the issues that are raised, that people were killed, the massacre that was described in the report. And to me, it's very unfortunate at this level of our development that that will still be going on, or that type of thing can happen in a country that is under a democratic rule, given the fact that Nigeria is one of the leading democracies in Africa, and we should lead by example. Government is all out. The essence of government is to protect the life and properties of citizens.
Okay.
And the citizens also have the right to participate freely, and they have the right to life, and they also have the right to express themselves. And these young people have all come out to express themselves, to protest against the brutality of the men of the SARS, and that shouldn't be a big deal. In developed climes, we see protests all over the place, and what the government or the agencies of the state do is usually to ensure that they carry out their activities in conformity with the public order. You know, they don't allow them to get out of order, not to use live ammunition or to call in soldiers or men of the armed forces. That is not necessary.
Okay.
If that was not done, we wouldn't be talking about mass killing of innocent young Nigerians.
Yeah.
Doctor, a question. Has he read the report? Did he read the evidence contained in the report before going to the findings? Because you see, it is not a buffet. It's a set meal. You eat everything, page 1 to 309. Don't go to read from page 287.
Yeah.
I'm sure the good doctor has not read the report.
But Mr. Anderson, the thing is this.
Yes.
When you started out, you made reference to a member of the panel who said, well, there were errors. But I think the same member also said those errors were corrected before they then submitted to the state. And you said there were 2 hard copies that were submitted. So if the state doesn't release the corrected versions, what are people supposed to do? How do we know that what is here is not the right one that's there?
Very well. Remember, the findings that everyone is speaking to is not what, we've not seen the hard copy. All we've all seen is those 309 pages. How many of those speaking to the findings bothered to read the evidence
So you're asking them
contained
to,
in that report?
so they should still rely on the circulated one of which you said there were errors and they were corrected?
If they say it's been corrected, fine. But
Do you think it was corrected?
I don't know, because I've not seen any other thing. But what I can say is that whoever is going to speak about those 309 pages should ensure that he has read the 309 pages. And I'll show you further evidence.
Just a second, before you go there.
In the same document.
Do you, in that same document,
Yes.
I mean, the parts that you are, speaking to, they are valid, but have you also considered that part of that same leaked report that that talked about the fact that there were talks about deploying trucks with brushes and washing away what would have been evidence?
Thank you very much. That was said in the report of Forensic Sentinel as something that was picked from open source. Now, open source, go to Loma Web's, what's it called? Twitter handle, which is where they said, oh, they saw that the Loma MD said that they had commenced the cleaning of Lagos. That tweet was on the 23rd of October.
After a judicial panel of inquiry had been set.
As at the 23rd, the panel had not been named. It had not been set.
The panel had been set as at 18th or 19th of
No.
October.
No.
The panel was set up before October 20.
The EndSARS panel of inquiry.
Yes, the judicial panel of inquiry. The EndSARS part was just an addition.
No, the Lekki incident was the addition. As of the 28th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, that additional term of reference relating to the Lekki toll gate was not part of the judicial panel of inquiry's terms of reference.
You do not question the time. Okay, we need to take a break.
Yes, we will.
No.
We're not done yet. No,
Okay.
not any stretch of imagination.
don't
But
know,
we'll come back to this in just a moment. Don't forget Dr. Adedosunmutu. He will need to speak for a while as well. So don't go away. You can send us your comments, by the way, of what you think. But just give us a moment. We will be back.
I'm going to constitute a 4-man committee very immediately, which will be led and headed by the Honorable Attorney General, the Commissioner for Youth and Social Development, the Special Advisor Works, and the Permanent Secretary, the Cabinet Office. The 4 of them will very, very quickly look through and bring forward a white paper within the next 2 weeks that will be considered at the Lagos State Executive Council and will be gazetted as a white paper coming from the panel of inquiry.
Well, just before we get to Dr. Dosunmu, well, Mr. Nixon, yes, you were a defense attorney to Lagos State for the EndSARS, and so people think, well, yeah, it's natural that you defend some of those positions previously, but you did say that you didn't question the individual integrity of those members, but then you're not questioning that particular report, because even Dr. Dosunmu said that he's surprised that you're focusing on some of the minor things, and then it comes across to him as though Lagos is, or you're trying to poo-poo the objective and then the findings of that report.
You see, the integrity of members may not be in doubt. It has nothing to do with the evidence on the basis of which they came to finding. If the evidence does not add up with the finding, it can be simply that they fail to appreciate even the evidence before them. It has nothing to do with integrity. I'm not talking about integrity. I'm talking about the evidence contained in the 309 pages and the findings contained in the 309 pages.
Okay.
My friend, my brother here was talking about brushes. Mm-hmm. What was the evidence? The panel, it was at page 296, that the panel said 3 trucks with brushes were brought, and that there is something on Twitter as of October 20th. That is not correct. Before the panel, until this moment, there is no video to corroborate that statement. Remember, before the panel, what was the evidence? Somebody said they were there on the morning of the 21st. There were journalists. They had cameras. Her evidence was that there were news reporters. Now, not one of all the news reporters that were on that location on the morning of the 21st had sight of these trucks with brushes. Twitter handle, you can still go there. As of this morning, you know you can always find out whatever had been on Twitter. No problem. Internet never forgets. That statement that was shown was on the 23rd. The trucks that were there are these open back 3-ton trucks.
That's one agent of government, right? Now, yes, internet never forgets. We can
So
always
you
go
can
there.
always check.
Let me also go then to the 21st
Yes.
of October, which you spoke about, 2020. A statement by LCC
Yes.
press release.
Yes.
It's out there for everybody to see,
Yes.
which they tendered
Yes.
to the panel on that day. And it says, quote, Lekki Concession Company Limited, LCC, strongly condemns, and that's in caps, the shooting of peaceful protesters at the Admiralty Circle Toll Plaza yesterday, 20th October 2020.
Yes.
LCC would never, that's in caps, support or condone such unscrupulous acts meted out on unarmed protesters. Since the commencement of the protest, LCC has allowed free access, and it goes on.
And it goes on.
This
Yes.
is what the panel relied on. It
Now,
was tendered. They were the ones who said it. LCC, an agent of government.
What is contained in that statement? Shooting. There is
Of unarmed.
no doubt that shots were fired. We all saw it on TV. That evening of the 20th, we all saw it.
Now,
Hold on.
What-
Did LCC speak to anyone being killed? Shots were fired. We saw that on live TV.
Shooting of unarmed protesters.
We saw shooting on live TV. But what we did not see was anyone being, because your journalists were there, it was on channels that I saw it, and I also saw your anchor speaking to Dr. Patutomi, or Professor Patutomi, that evening. We all saw the soldiers there shooting into the air.
Professor Patutomi on ground? He wasn't physically there.
He was not physically there,
So
but
the
he was.
interview
He
wasn't
was.
conducted right there
No
with him.
interview was conducted there. But
So why are you
let us.
referencing Professor Tony?
No,
He
I'm
was
telling
as
you
if he
that
was physically
we
there.
all saw soldiers shooting into the air. We all saw the LCC footage thereafter in the well of the panel. We all saw that. The panel's forensic experts went and looked at that footage. The state expert went and looked at the same footage. They both came back saying that the soldiers fired blank rounds.
Can we look at that footage for a bit?
Please.
Is this the one you're talking about?
Yes. And you can see the muzzle flashes going up. You can see the muzzle flashes.
Senator,
Yes.
this that we are looking at is an activity being performed by security officials who are supposed to be protecting the people who are not armed,
Who had no business there in the first place?
military men who had no business there in the first place, shooting at people, Nigerians they're supposed to be protecting, who are not armed and who are just simply exercising a constitutional.
And soldiers are trained differently from police. They are trained to kill.
And you do not see anything wrong with that.
Now,
They're shooting into the air with what intent? To scare?
evidence was laid at the panel in respect of this.
Is there a room?
Hold on.
Mr. Senator, just
Yes.
a second. Is there a room in law
Yes.
for morals?
Morals.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Morals have no place in law. Law is, what does the letter of the law say? What are the facts? What is the evidence presented? Bring that evidence, couple it with the provision of the law. If they add up, make a finding. If they don't, make a finding.
Okay.
This that we watched here just now shows clearly muzzle flashes. The experts, as well as well, he was not on ground, all agreed that those muzzle flashes were consistent with the firing of blank rounds. You see, that shots were fired, those were the shots.
If that were the case, why were there denials from the very high-ranking government officials that soldiers were not even there in the first place? It could have been thugs. All sorts came through at that point in time.
No.
It shows intent to conceal and deny those things.
Even I think it was Shakespeare that said, the devil does not know what is in any man's heart. I do not know any man's intent. What I know is what I see.
All right. Well, Dr. Dosunmu, what do you think?
Well, I think the main issues that we should be talking about now is the implementation of the report. Yes, the white paper is being expected, and we hope that that will be done very fast. And the government should go a step further to ensure that the reports, the findings of the panel is implemented. Those that are culpable should be made to face justice so that this can deter others in future. We can't run a country on the basis of sentiments. Things must be done properly.
But you can hear him quoting some facts, at least from his own perspective. Can we run away from those facts that he's quoting?
Well, I feel those facts in quote are not enough to water down the content of the report, the major findings of the report.
But you know he is counsel to the state government.
Yeah, he's counsel to the state government.
Clearly, some of his suggestions or possibly recommendations, should the state government find it relevant, could be considered in the white paper. And if that is, what would be your own expectations?
Well, I feel the government has a lot of access to a lot of information and a lot at their disposal. Even one of the counsel to the government should also advise the government on what should be done, because the government has really, you see, what the government needs to do. I want to say that the government should take full credit of the outcome of this investigation. The first thing the government has done by setting up a judicial panel of inquiry and then later investigative panel is a good thing, and they are commended for that. But to now try to chicken out in the middle of would amount to not being honest. No. The government should go full hog and ensure that the reports, the findings of the reports are properly implemented.
Okay,
and we'll get take credit for that.
We'll get to play something regarding to what you've just said about the panel, is it binding or not, in just a moment. But, Mr. Senator, the soldiers also confessed to the panel that they fired both live and blank bullets. Was that right? Yes or no?
That's correct.
Exactly.
But they never said they shot at any individual.
Well,
now,
let
me speak to that. You asked the question.
I know.
Let me speak to it.
Just a minute, because you've said yes.
Based on evidence on the record.
Yeah, I just said yes or no.
I don't know.
I only said whether they said that yes or no, and that's it.
I don't do conjecture.
It's not conjecture.
I will back up.
They spoke to the panel that they fired both live and what you spoke about. Is a yes.
However, you just seen that footage.
What was
that footage?
I only asked respecting.
Hold on. That footage was of soldiers firing.
But you know,
now,
Senator,
what is consistent with an individual being shot with a live round?
Well, the thing is this.
It is not in any footage.
You know, in law, you always talk about the intendment of the law. In this particular case, soldiers who are trained to kill, they go to a venue where there was a peaceful protest, because the LCC said it in their press statement that it was peaceful. They were peaceful. And so if you then send soldiers there to a peaceful protest, what did you expect them to go do? To go sightseeing? And secondly, is it that the guns that the police use cannot fire into the air? Why did soldiers have to go there to go fire into the air?
Now, we're losing sight of one thing. Evidence before the panel was that as of that moment, the whole of Lagos State had been paralyzed. Policemen
According to who? The whole of Lagos was paralyzed? In the same Lagos where we were?
As of the 20th.
I don't think so.
As of
no.
the 20th.
We moved around.
You moved around because you were journalists.
It wasn't paralyzed.
Hold on. I had lawyers who went to court, who finished by 2, but did not get back to the mainland until 7 because the whole of Lagos had been locked down. What happened was...
The government declared a curfew.
A curfew was declared.
There was a curfew.
As at that time, the evidence before the panel was that, of course, if there is a curfew, that's the paralysis of the state.
So why would the soldiers go shoot when there's a curfew?
The soldiers'
Remember, this was
evidence,
after the curfew. This was after the curfew.
The soldiers' evidence was that they were deployed to cover the Lekki-Epe corridor.
After the curfew. This was after the curfew, the shooting, wasn't it?
The shooting was after declaration of curfew.
So why were they shooting when there's already a curfew?
They were going somewhere. The evidence, I'm not talking about what is not in that 309 pages.
Let's listen to Mr. Falana for a moment. He was also on the show yesterday. And this is what he had to say about the reports being binding on all or not. Let's have a listen.
Some of them have submitted their reports. Some are writing their reports. Some have not concluded sittings. So what has happened in Lagos is just one out of 28 reports that were expecting. And these panels of inquiry were set up under the law, under the Tribunal of Inquiry law in each of the states. Whoever is recommended for sanction or prosecution, whether you are a federal public officer or a state public officer or a private individual, you can be prosecuted under the law. By the way, murder or culpable homicide, manslaughter, and so on and so forth are state offenses. So if a federal officer commits murder in Lagos, he's going to be charged before the Lagos High Court. The Federal High Court has no jurisdiction on it. The Federal Attorney General cannot prosecute him because it's a state offense.
In addition to what you're going to say, as well as Dr. Dosunmu, the thing is, much as you cited some errors which you thought were inconsistent with what actually transpired, if the panel report is 80% accurate, why wouldn't it be binding on all?
Accuracy is not about what you have written in English. Accuracy of the report is the evidence consistent with the findings. If I am saying to you that on critical aspects, the evidence of the forensic expert employed by the panel itself is inconsistent with the finding of the panel, the evidence of witnesses that the panel said they relied on heavily, Sarah Ibrahim, Dabira Yuku, Kamsi Chuku, these were individuals that gave evidence that showed that they did not know what they were talking about. You know, read the report. Let everyone read the evidence in that report.
The thing about this is that if they're asking people to read what is in the report, and they say there were errors,
it's not error. I'm not talking about typo errors. I'm talking about fundamental. It's like a judgment which, on its face, the evidence does not support the result.
Are you saying that there was no killings as a result of this? No
killings.
Deaths? No deaths as a result of this?
At Lekki toll gate, there is no evidence before the panel.
You are not saying there is no killing. You say there is no evidence of killing.
I was not there. I am not trained to listen to hearsay. I am trained to react to hard evidence. What was the evidence that was presented and is contained in those 309 pages?
This comes
if
across...
sorry, sir. If that evidence, it cannot support the finding, then that is it.
This comes across as though it's laying grounds for the state or the white paper to come up with something different other than what is already out there. And that's going to be difficult for people to accept.
Listen, and I'm saying read the report.
I'm telling you how it comes across.
Now, how does court decisions go normally? Facts I looked at. Hold on.
This is different from that scenario.
It is a judicial panel
yeah,
of
but
inquiry.
it also says it shouldn't just be done. It should be seen to have been done. So there are two components.
No,
Dr. Sumu has been waiting for a while. Dr. Sumu, you've had some of this in. So tell us what's going through your mind.
Well, I'm just wondering whether...
I think Dr. Sumu should read the
just
report.
let him respond.
I'm wondering whether my learned brother can change the perception of the public about the report. Because the report has gone viral, people have read it, and the findings are mind-boggling. And to now say that you want to tone down that because of one or two minor evidential omission or whatever is out of place. No. I think what the government should be looking at is how to implement this report and come out clean. Since the government started set up the judicial panel of inquiry, and then now they have the findings. You see, one thing I realize is that in this climb, we are not used to people speaking truth to power. You know, a judicial panel that was set up by government in place is now telling the government that, look, the agencies of state were wrong in their approach, and certainly some things were also wrong, and they are saying it to the government. The government should accept this and learn from it, so that in future, things like this will not repeat itself. That is what we should be looking at, not to try to tone down the report or change the perception of the public and all that. People have made up their mind. They've read the report. Everybody, we don't need to go and read the 309 pages of the report. You don't need everybody to go and read the 309. It's your own job. You are advising government on it, so maybe you serve on the panel. So you are supposed to, but that does not, we just want to look at the summaries of the findings.
Okay. Well, Mr. Nison, would you be recommending, if you had to the Lagos State government, that this report should be discountenanced?
My view, if I were to take a decision on this report, I will look at the evidence contained in the report. I will look at the findings. Definitely, there are findings that make sense, regardless of the evidence, that police need training. Definitely, the police need training, that there should be psych evaluation and all of that. Those are very good.
What would be your recommendation to the government of Lagos State, if you had your way?
If I had my way?
Yes.
If I had my way, based on what I can see in the evidence as a lawyer, I'm not talking sentiment, as a lawyer, based on the evidence contained in that report, there are some findings that should be thrown out. Based on the evidence in the report, there are findings that are not consistent with that evidence, and those findings should be thrown out. There are findings that are consistent with evidence. Those definitely should stand.
You can say that because you were counsel and you were there.
Exactly.
The evidence is in the public domain. It is there. People should read it.
The report which you say is not authentic, so one wonders how people will,
listen,
you know, internalize all of those scenarios.
Listen,
so
listen,
it's
Chamberlain.
It's
we are all, every one of us who has had cause to comment on this report, we are commenting on what is in the public domain. We do not know what was submitted to government.
The ball is in the court of the state then, let's see, because the white paper is supposed to tell them how they will implement the report.
Let me give you.
I'm afraid we can't go further. I'm afraid. I'm really afraid we're out of
okay.
time. We're really out of time. But I mean, Dr. Dosimu will complain if we keep going on.
No, because
half as much as because so justice needs to be seen to have been done in this case. So we have to thank you for coming up, Mr. Kai Dianinto, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria and the Council, Defense Council to Lagos on the EndSARS panel, as Dr. Adedosumu MON, former DG Demasa, Public Policy Analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we will be back in a moment. Don't go away. Well, just before we go there, our head of Foreign Affairs, Deska Bani, is following up with U.S. Secretary of State's visit to Nigeria, Anthony Blinken. She joins us live from the ECOWAS Secretariat in Abuja. Hello, Amara. What's going on at the moment?
Well, Chamberlain, good morning to you and good morning to the Sunrise team. We have been here since the crack of dawn, awaiting this all-important U.S. foreign policy speech that will be given by the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, right here at the ECOWAS Secretariat in Abuja. So what's going on right now is just still preparations, you know, for this, for Mr. Blinken's arrival. He's not yet here, but his team is on the ground. So we're just setting up, you know, getting used to the environment, you know, and just waiting for him to arrive. This speech he's given today is really important, and that's because it's been a while, you know, that a U.S. Secretary of State is actually like given, you know, a foreign policy speech for Africa. And it's all important because where he's even given this speech is also equally important. Nigeria happens to be the U.S. second largest trading partner in Africa. And the U.S. continuously says that Nigeria is one of its most important and strategic partners in Africa because of the position that it occupies, its population, its resources, and you know that Nigeria also is a beacon of hope for, you know, for democracy on the continent. So a lot looking forward to concerning this speech. Still awaiting. We understand that events will eventually kick off at 11 a.m. So we still have a long way to go until then.
Well, Amara, I'm just wondering, for me, the question is that of significance and impact, especially on the largely young population of the country and the continent, of course. I don't know, you may not be able to, you may not have seen the speech nor know what he's going to talk about, but from your experience covering this bit, what are your expectations, especially of the impact and possible implementation on our part in Africa?
So you're right when you say I haven't seen the speech. Of course, that will not be revealed to journalists just yet until, you know, it is given right here on the stage here. But, you know, from what we understand, Mr. Blinken will be speaking basically to, you know, the economic and strategic partnerships that exist between Nigeria and the United States, and for the rest of Africa as well, because as we know, in the past administration, it appeared that, you know, the Africa and Africa's issues were pushed down, you know, on the list of priorities. But, you know, that interest seems to be picking back up, you know, and I think that Mr. Blinken will be speaking, you know, to that today. So as for the youth and the impact on all of that, I'm not sure that that will make up much of his speech, but you know, Africa has a really growing young population, and a lot of them will be looking forward to this speech, especially you know, as you know, Nigeria, there are about over 500,000 Nigerian Americans in the U.S. Just, you know, doing business and living and so on. So yeah, a lot to look forward to still.
Well, one other thing that I'm looking forward to taping from what you said is the fact that Nigeria has been delisted from the religious freedom blacklist, especially from the U.S. Yeah. And even though even that is being contested by some CSO in the U.S., does that ring a bell? That sounds not like something close home?
Well, haven't heard anything about that, here. And I've had the opportunity to speak to some of the officials. Lips are tight, no one's saying anything about, what we're expecting today. I also haven't, seen anything regarding that, on, some of the news sites that I have been monitoring all morning, as regards, reactions to Mr. Blinken's visit to Nigeria. So not much has been said about that just yet.
So one more thing, Amara, do you expect some conversation around visa policy? It's going to be what's going on with that, the backlog they have, why is it just 2 years? So many questions usually been asked over the years about that.
You're right. So many questions, about that, the backlogs and the fact that, certain types of visas are not being issued at the moment in the country. And that's all due to the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Because it's not just Nigeria that was affected. There were countries all over the world that were affected. The U.S. just reopened its borders to the rest of the world to vaccinated individuals on November 8th. So we're still trying to see, how that, affects, travel and all of that. But to the issue of visas, I expect that would come down to more bilateral talks, when he must have met with the president, President Buhari, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyema, even though neither, alluded to that, when they spoke about, what they had discussed during their meetings. But we have a strong feeling, that things will begin to even out, as the months progress.
Okay, no, we need to go. I was going to ask if we should expect anything about vaccine production and manufacturing here, but I guess we'll just hold on a minute and see how all of that plays out. So, thank you very much indeed, Amara.
Okay. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Let's talk to Abuja now. Markwe?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, we're sinking our teeth into something equally important is outside the shores of Nigeria. It happened outside the shores of our country, within the ECOWAS state. It's interesting that Mara is reporting from the ECOWAS headquarters here in Abuja, not too far away from where we are. But something happened in one of our sister countries that is not very pleasant. A Nigerian lady was wrongfully jailed. Well, that's what he said, was wrongfully jailed and has, as a result of illness and a number of other things, lost her life in the process of trying to fight for justice. There have been questions as to what the Nigerian government did to try and bring this woman's case to light and bring justice to her before she eventually passed. There have been questions and there have been criticisms. To answer some of those questions and to say what the Nigerian government did about it, because right now we understand that the Nigerian government is also requesting that an autopsy be carried out to ascertain the cause of her death. Her name is Itunu Babalola. We have with us the chairman and CEO of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, Madam Abike Dabiri-Erewa. You're welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning.
Thank you, Mokwe, and good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Well, it was really very sad to note the story of Itunu Babalola as has gone viral. She was known by another alias in the country where she was in Côte d'Ivoire, from what we understand. But the story, from how it was told by journalists, did not leave a very pleasant taste. We understand that she was working in that country and had gone to complain to the police about a robbery, and before you know what was happening, the accuser turned the accused, and it was saying that, justice was just slow in being served. What does the Nigerian, because we understand that your commission intervened in the early days of that particular issue. What do you know about the case and how did it go down?
Well, I'll tell you the case as told by the mission and the family themselves. This was, she had been in jail for 2 years. Like you said, burglary. All of a sudden, burglary became human trafficking. And her name, the name she used for the case and in Côte d'Ivoire was Becky Paul. So all of a sudden, because a policeman was involved, the nephew, the guy who burgled was said to be his nephew and all that. But one thing is, I wish she had even informed the mission while that case was going on. Perhaps the issue of going to court would not have arisen. Anyway, she was in court for 2 years until the father actually informed the Diaspora Commission and the Nigerian mission in Côte d'Ivoire about the plight of her daughter. Now, I'll tell you what the Nigerian mission did. This was in March, COVID period. So by May, no, this was going towards March, April. By May, anyway, the Nigerian mission immediately got the service of a lawyer. Now, where she is very far away. She's like 4 to 8 hours outside Abidjan. So the Nigerian mission in Côte d'Ivoire, under the Consul General there, Mr. Mohamed Abba Ghana, actually immediately got the service of a lawyer and went with the consular officer to the prison where she was. Very far, like I said, outside Abidjan.
I'm trying to put dates to this, because you're saying she had already been in court for 2 years.
No, she had been in jail.
In jail for 2 years?
For 2 years.
Before the case came to your attention?
Before anybody even knew she was in jail.
How did you get to know about this
The father. I think she might have thought this was not going to happen. She was going to get out, and then the father actually got in touch with us, and we got in touch with the mission, and immediately the mission, in fact, the Nigerian community in Côte d'Ivoire also got involved. So the first thing was go and see her in prison. And they went there, saw her, had a meeting with her, had a meeting with the lawyer, the prosecutor, and it was discovered that, look, she didn't commit that crime, as sure as the sun will shine. So the next thing is transfer the case from where she is to Abidjan. That's the easiest thing to do. So they were told it takes years, but with the intervention of the Nigerian High Commissioner, Ambassador Ahmed, the case has now been transferred to Abidjan. So within the last couple of months, that was what they were working on, and finally got to Abidjan. And you know what it is. You're already in jail. You're appealing. You want the case transferred. Sometimes it takes 3 years. And we're talking of, another country in West Africa. So they succeeded in doing all that. And then the first thing they did was the Nigerian community and staff of the mission immediately raised funds, because if we are waiting for government, it might take a while, to get the lawyer to go there and start the processes. That was done. Then by the time they got all things done, the case has now been transferred to Abidjan. The appeal was to begin. And the lawyer charged some thousands of dollars, which Ambassador Ahmed actually paid. Started the process. And we're all waiting for this appeal to start. And she gets out of jail and boom, we hear she's dead. So right now, like the Nigerian government has said...
She never got out of jail, did she?
No, I said, no, she left. When she fell ill, they called the embassy. The lawyer went to see her, and they took her to military hospital in Abidjan. So she died in hospital. She never went back. So what happened? How did she develop diabetes complications? Because the father said she never had such history. So right now, the ambassador has demanded that an autopsy be conducted. They've issued a strong statement on their website and condemned the way she was even treated in the first place. How does burglary become human trafficking, even if she used a different name? So that is what we're waiting for, the result of the autopsy. And the Ivorian government, have promised that everything will be done, no cover-ups and all that. So in terms of what the government think, I'm giving you the timeline, in the sense that there was nobody took anything for granted. The mission were on top of the matter. Money was not a problem. Everything was done. But, even transferring the case, which was the most important thing, could have taken years. But with intervention of the Nigerian High Commission, they ensured that the case was taken to Abidjan, and the appeal was supposed to continue.
What I find striking about this case, because, you say that the case came to light when her father, approached your commission and you escalated it to the mission in Côte d'Ivoire. Do I understand that correctly?
Well, the father told us.
Yes.
We worked with the mission. They had also gotten to know, and then the mission took the right action. You see, if she had, this thing happened to you, and this is one of the things that came out of this, let the mission know when you're in trouble.
What I know, that's how you knew, but lots of Nigerians knew about that case through the write-up by David Hunde.
Well, David,
Twitter.
Somebody wrote, I can't follow the name, but somebody wrote, and we replied the person
Indeed.
that this case was being looked at.
We saw a response
but
from
the father got in touch with us personally and said, so it was about the same time. I think it was also, maybe, I don't know how anybody was about the same time.
Was it about 2 years ago?
No. This was just in this year. This was last year, between March and May. That's why she's been in jail for 2 years before it even got to the attention of the Nigerian High Commission, of the Diaspora Commission.
How quickly do we get, because one of the things that struck me in the testimony which you just gave now is the fact that she was wrongfully accused.
Yeah, but she didn't tell anybody.
No, you said it was as clear as day.
After the mission intervened, got the lawyer, that she was wrongfully incarcerated.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. You've been in jail for 2 years.
Indeed.
That means you went through a court process and then you were sentenced. Now the next thing is you appeal the judgment, saying that it was a wrongful judgment, which is what the Nigerian government decided to do. Get the lawyer, pay the lawyer. Ordinarily, if you have a case, you get your lawyer. But the Nigerian government decided that they'll sort this case in this particular case. So the next thing you do is appeal. Okay, you might say diplomatic intervention. You've been incarcerated. You've been in jail for 2 years. That's the first thing you do, have a legal option. And the lawyer working with the mission realized that, look, according to the case in front of him, she will win the appeal. After she wins the appeal, she gets... In fact, they also asking for bail while the appeal was on. So it was a lot of judicial processes going on as at that time. She had been in jail for 2 years. But if she had told the mission, even while she was having issues with the burglary or
for a number
trafficking...
of people, talking about the mission, and this is not to disparage the work that the missions are doing. I do know that a lot of missions are putting in their best, especially within the resources that they have. But when a number of Nigerians are in trouble abroad, the missions is not the first thing that comes to their mind. Maybe relatives, friends, communities that they have formed come to their mind. But very rarely do missions, feature as one of the first options.
I agree with you in quite a number of instances. But here's the thing. When the trouble just starts sometimes, at least if you had, and we keep appealing to Nigerians that if you had, now you can say, well, I went and nobody did anything. But she didn't. So that's what I'm saying. One of the things, NIDCOM was not in existence 2 years ago. So what we're trying to appeal to, particularly students, take during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was tough because a lot of people started coming and you never even knew they were in those countries. So I think at least, particularly the young people, students, just let them know that especially when you get into trouble, like in this case, if she had approached the mission and they said, oh, get out of here, then she can say, I did this, but they drove me away.
Yes, but when eventually the missions do intervene, in what time frame do you think that people can reasonably expect justice?
It varies from mission to mission, person to person, case to case. In this particular case, the judicial system of that country had to be put in place. In some cases, to even transfer a case, according to the lawyers, you can ask any lawyer, could take as much as 2 years, or even commence the whole thing. But we can say it was slow, but it was done within a period of a few months, which we would have thought would have been done immediately anyway, but their own court processes needed to be taken into consideration. If you say, some say, oh, diplomatic intervention, that led to hastening, even getting the case transferred to Abidjan. So it takes a process, and you may query or question the judicial process of that country. But that's not for me to do, but that's what the mission did immediately, started working on it. In fact, when the father informed us, one of the things was, why don't we just go to Côte d'Ivoire? Well, then there was COVID. Even the father himself could not go.
Are there any lessons that Nigeria takes away from this? I'm going to talk about what Nigeria is requesting much later, but are there any lessons Nigeria takes away from this in terms of how this has been handled? And the fact that, one, she was innocent of the charges brought against her. She had been wrongfully incarcerated for 2 years before there was an intervention. As a country, the fact that in the process of trying to get her justice, she died. Are there any lessons that, as a country, we're taking away from this in terms of how we handle further cases where the person has been clearly proven to be innocent?
That is why we don't expect that this case is just going to end like that. An autopsy is being done. We expect the result. The case must go on so that even in death, she must get justice. NIDCOM has written to Interpol. A policeman was involved in Côte d'Ivoire. So they should look into it. What was the relationship? What happened? Maybe they have their own story. How did burglary turn to human trafficking? Whether she was Becky Paul or Itunu. So that is there. We are, like I said, we've evolved. Also, the Office of the Attorney General is fully in the picture. So that is one thing that I hope that Nigeria as a country will ensure that you don't just let this go away just like that. We must get justice for the poor girl. She was only in search, even if she was not, maybe she didn't have a work permit, maybe that's why she used that name. That is not why she should die. And then she was also badly treated in prison. According to what the lawyer said, and according to what the father also said, she was badly treated in prison. She indeed sent me a message from prison, just asking that her case be transferred to Abidjan, which I communicated to the mission. So that is one thing. And then two is that...
I know that you've always advocated for Nigerians in prison. It's been something of concern to you. Has there been any improvement, especially now that you are at NIDCOM, and it would seem that you have more executive wherewithal to be, I mean, I knew about this when you were in the House of Representatives. Now that you have more executive wherewithal to be able to do something about it, what more can we request in terms of the treatment of Nigerians in prison?
The executive wherewithal is actually more with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, you know, maybe for the final decision. You know, we can say this is the situation, these are the numbers. But what we have done, we've been to a couple of prisons within West Africa. I remember the one to Republic of Benin, and with the ambassador. What we're dealing with, there's some that were there, just needed to be built out. We built them out. There was a boy who was just 11 years old. He committed the crime when they said he raped a 4-year-old. He committed the crime when he was 7. That means he's been there for 4 years. So the intervention of the mission was this boy shouldn't be here. But the real deep cases of crime, you can't just come and say go. But where, you know, there are little issues. There are some cases in some other African countries about overstay. So what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs generally is doing is having, like, you know, an overlook at all these cases, which ones are not so bad that can get out. Like it happened in South Africa. There's some Nigerians in prison that the offenses were minor. With the intervention of the mission, they were able to get out. But the deep ones, you did drugs, you did this and that, it's difficult.
You went to see the Ivorian ambassador here in Abuja. What did you
ask well, we told him the demands of the Nigerian government, and he gave assurances that he said to us there are about 3 billion Nigerians in Côte d'Ivoire. We know that. And that we'll do everything to ensure that no Nigerian is that unfairly treated, and give us assurances that they will not cover up and everything will be done to get justice for Itunu. She's just 21 years old, going 22.
A real sad one.
Really, really sad.
21-year-old lady. But I want to ask, you know, what more? Would Nigeria be, you know, looking at any, assuming this, well, while this is going on, but in its relationship with Côte d'Ivoire, how does this affect Nigeria's relationship with Côte d'Ivoire?
Well, let's see how it goes. But on that level, in terms of policy and what next, it will be at the level of the Minister of Foreign Affairs to take that decision in terms of the relationship. But for us, as a commission, we want to ensure that even the father, you know, we shouldn't just leave him alone like that. And I'm glad that, you know, even the Oyo State government, people are reaching out to him to say, the first thing the man wants is his daughter's corpse. The corpse will return after autopsy has been conducted. But one thing that hurts...
Do we have our team on the autopsy team?
Oh, yes. The Nigerian mission officials are involved. Absolutely, yes. And that's why the corpse has not returned to him. He wants to bury his daughter, and we've told him that he will bury his daughter. You know, some people have already gone to the man and said, collected his account number, said they're going to raise money to bring a corpse home. I think what hurts him and every other person, there are some people trying to capitalize on a tragedy to make money out of it, or promote blogs or social media out of this. And I think that is very inconsiderate and inhuman. At least that's what the man said. Somebody has said, bring your account number, we're going to raise money to bring back the corpse. So, and I told the man, don't listen to them, because really, after autopsy, the corpse will be brought in, we'll be with him to say, you know, it's going to be a sad incident, but have her buried. And then we also look at the family and what next can be done to ease this burden and this deep pain.
Well, we'll certainly hold you to the commitment that the Nigerian government has made with regards to getting justice for her alive or now that she's dead.
Some lawyers have said they will go to the ECOWAS court, talking about ECOWAS. And they said, well, that they have a right to do that. So all areas should be looked into. The Interpol will expect a response. If lawyers want to go to ECOWAS court, we're part of ECOWAS. And this is a clear case of injustice, period.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. Abike Dabiri Irawa is the Chairman and CEO of the Nigeria Diaspora Commission, and since she's been speaking to us on the passing of Itunu Babalola, a young Nigerian woman who was wrongfully convicted in Côte d'Ivoire. Well, that's where we'll have to leave it for this segment. We have a few mails now. We'll take a few of them. This one is from Festus Akimboyewa, talking about the Lagos EndSARS panel report. And he says, whether Lagos EndSARS panel report is full of speculations, inconsistencies, and ambiguities, it must never be swept under the carpet. It is depressing and demoralizing that innocent Nigerians were injured and some died while protesting police brutality unarmed. What Nigerians want is accountability. Nothing more, nothing less.
Ofego says, I'm surprised that he's still fighting to admit that people died or were severely injured as a result. As a lawyer, he should be aware that in so many judicial authorities, it has been held that the act of firing a weapon is simply with the intention of committing grievous bodily harm. So the intention of the soldiers on that day is in no doubt to commit serious bodily harm, which is in itself, whether or not people died, is a serious crime, to wit, attempted murder.
Uzo, on same issue, says, I'd like to remind the council that whereas the flashes of the gunshots fired into the air may be visible, the shots that are aimed laterally at protesters may not necessarily be visible, and therefore it would be wrong to conclude from the footage that there were no shots aimed at the protesters.
Well, this one is from Titi Loye, talking about the Lagos EndSARS panel report. Says, I think something is not adding up here. Massacre with report of 3 deaths, 2 of blunt injury, not gunshot, and 3rd body recovered on 2nd day. This is pathologist opinion. Evidence not consistent with findings in a case as sensitive as this. Leaked report. We all need to tread carefully at this stage. And that's from Nicholas Titiloye.
Lauren Loba says, should the soldiers have been at the Lekki toll gate in the first place? No. Should they have shot blank bullets into the air? No. Did the army deny ever going to the scene? Yes. These are facts that Council to Lagos State government can never deny. Are there enough to show complacency on the part of the government? Yes. While we await the white report, the government should instead start working towards reconciliation and warming their way back into the hearts of Nigerian youths instead of killing the facts. So there you go. That is the show today.
Very well said.
Yes. Go ahead.
Indeed. I mean, the last words there, warming their way back into the hearts of Nigerian youths and earning once more their trust will certainly be a way to go. We have to thank you so much for watching this morning and contributing your quota by watching and writing in. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
That word trust you used, Maokwe, is a very expensive currency and commodity.
Yeah,
Am I back today? Have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend.
Remember, if you're in Lagos, look out for VIO and LASMA. They appear to be on the revenue drive. So stay safe. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.